Hello, and in this part 2 speaking video I will describe a kind of food people eat during a special event. You should say what it is, what event people usually eat it at, how it is cooked or made, and explain why it is made for the special event. Now, I struggle to think of something that we would all eat in many different countries because British food is very different to the food you eat in your countries on special occasions. So I've chosen to talk about birthday cake because I think it's something that is eaten in a lot of countries, and even if it's not eaten in your country, you could say that it's something that your family eats. If you have a different kind of food that you want to talk about, that's fine, but you might like to use birthday cake as your topic. And at the end of the video, I'll look at a couple of part 3 questions as well. There are loads of different foods that are eaten on special occasions. Turkey at Christmas, chocolate at Easter, to name but a few. But I have decided to talk about birthday cake, which is obviously eaten on birthdays, because even as an adult, I still get excited by it. Birthday cakes can be bought or homemade, but personally I prefer the latter, because it is not just about the taste of the cake, it is about the effort that somebody has put in to making the cake. If someone bakes a cake for you, then it is a sign of their love or friendship, and this is more special than the cake itself. It saddens me that, in contemporary society, many cakes are bought. There are a number of reasons for this phenomena. Firstly, baking is a dying art, and many do not know how to do it. And secondly, people just don't have the time to do it. We are all leading such hectic lives that cooking is not a priority anymore. Despite not being the world's best cook, I am an expert when it comes to birthday cakes. First of all, you need to decide on the flavour. For example, chocolate, vanilla, or a trendy cake right now is red velvet cake. I have to admit that this is my personal favourite because it looks so pretty and is not as rich as chocolate cake, and is fancier than plain vanilla cake. Then there is the icing. You can use all kinds, but I like one made with cream cheese. On top of the cake, there are usually cake decorations. For instance, it might be a football-themed cake or a unicorn-themed cake. And the one thing it absolutely must have is candles. When it is a child's cake, there will be the same number of candles as the child's age. But when you are older, there is not enough space on the cake for all the candles, and it would be a fire risk. Usually the song Happy Birthday is sung, and the candles are blown out. The birthday boy or girl makes a wish. Oh, I'm feeling peckish now after all this talk of cakes. So let's take a look at the language. The question asks you about something eaten on a special event. We can say on special occasions. In the UK, we say at Christmas, at Easter. In America, they say on Christmas, on Easter. Both are perfectly acceptable. To name but a few. This means when you are creating a list, but you're not going to list every single festival or celebration. So instead of saying etc., to name but a few. We can use the passive in this topic because it's about making things. So it can be bought, it can be homemade. I prefer the latter, very good for IELTS writing as well. So it's referring back to two things I said, and it's referring back to the last one, so the homemade cake. When we use this expression to put effort into making something, so the effort that somebody has put in to making the cake, it needs to be an ing verb here. We can talk about making a cake or baking a cake. To make a cake, to bake a cake. A sign of, they're showing their love or their friendship. Now I've realised I've been using the word sadly a lot, so I changed it slightly here. It saddens me that, making it a little bit more complex. in contemporary society nowadays. You could use this in writing as well. Phenomena. A phenomena is an occurrence or a happening that is strange or unusual or noticeable. So here I'm talking about the fact that people are not making cakes anymore. And the reason for this is baking is a dying art. We use this to describe something that was done a lot in the past and was something creative, but it's not done anymore. A dying art. And many people, we are all leading such hectic lives. Very useful for speaking, because often in part 3 it's why don't we do certain things, or should we do certain things. We are all leading such hectic lives. Hectic means busy. And a priority, I use this quite a lot, can be used in writing and speaking. Something that is really important. So cooking is not as important as it used to be. It's not a priority. So here I've used despite instead of although. I often get asked why I use such formal language in speaking, and speaking is more informal. It's because I'm in my 40s, I'm quite a formal person. I do use formal language in speaking. In IELTS speaking, you don't have to use informal language. If you know informal language, it's good, but there's not a mark for formality or informality like there is in IELTS writing general task 1. And so formal language is acceptable. And the reason I'm using it in the videos is because I want to encourage you to use it in your writing as well. So despite, when we follow it with a verb, we follow it with an ing verb. So despite being, but here I want to make it negative, despite not being. And it means although I am not. And by using it, it just makes it a bit more complex, and it makes your grammar better because you're using this ing verb. An expert, so somebody who knows everything about a particular subject. And then you have different flavours, different tastes of the cake. So vanilla is the white cake, chocolate cake, and a trendy cake. It's a fashionable cake. It's the red velvet. The red is just food colouring in the cake. And it's made in a different way, and it's a very nice tasting cake. It's not as rich. When we describe food as rich, it's a very strong taste, which I find chocolate can be quite rich. It's fancier, so a bit more sophisticated, a bit more luxurious looking, fancier than plain vanilla. When something's plain, it's a bit boring. The icing is this part of the cake, the thing that covers the cake, the icing. And I like one made. This is a reduced relative clause. One which is made, one made with cream cheese. It's a type of soft cheese that we usually add cream to as well, and some sugar to make it sweeter. And then you have the cake decorations. These are the things that go on top of the cake. So this is the unicorn themed cake. You can have football themed, you can have a pop star themed. So it's what the cake is about. And then you have the candles on the cake. These are the candles on the cake. And I'm saying if you put a lot of candles on the cake, then it's a fire risk. There is a risk of fire. And the birthday boy, birthday girl, that's what we call the person whose birthday is, they make a wish. And usually they do this silently to themselves and say, oh, please let me win £1 million or whatever. Oh, I'm feeling peckish. Peckish is quite an informal word. I do use informal words. I'm not always formal. Peckish means hungry. After all this talk of cakes, so after talking about cakes for all this time is what this means. So quite a lot of useful language in there, and you might have a cake that you eat on a special occasion in your country. It doesn't have to be a birthday cake, so hopefully I've given you an idea of some of the things you can talk about. So let's have a look at some part 3 questions now connected with this topic. So one of the things they may ask you is, why do some people grow their own food nowadays? Well, as someone who is not green-fingered and doesn't grow their own food, I am only guessing here. If you are green-fingered, you are good at gardening. I am not good at gardening, so I'm not green-fingered. And very useful, I am only guessing here. So if you have a part 3 question that you don't really know why, so you can say, I'm only guessing here, and you've got a bit of continuous grammar in there, which is good. I suppose there is a sense of satisfaction from growing your own fruit and veg. We have a lot of expressions with a sense of enjoyment, a sense of satisfaction. So you feel good, you feel satisfied after you've done it. Now we often shorten the word vegetables to veg and we say fruit and veg. More than that though, I think the desire to eat more organic foods is a reason, as if it is homegrown, you know it isn't covered in pesticides. Things that eat fruit and veg are called pests. These are the little insects that destroy our fruit and veg. To kill them, to stop them eating the fruit and veg, we put on pesticides. But these pesticides are very dangerous for humans as well. So if you grow your own food, it's organic, and that means it doesn't have pesticides on it. So I think that's the kind of thing they're looking for in this question. It's organic, it isn't covered in pesticides, you get the sense of satisfaction from growing it. Let's take a look at another question connected with this topic. Do you think people should eat every meal with their family? Ideally, yes, but realistically, this isn't possible. So ideally means in a perfect world, in an ideal situation. But realistically, but in the real world, this just isn't possible. So that's a useful sentence for a lot of topics. Sharing food and time together is vital for healthy relationships. Now, in both speaking and writing, try to avoid the word important. It's vital, it's essential, it's imperative. However, it is not always practical. Some family members might have a different working pattern, e.g. working a night shift, and in some cases it is not feasible. So it's not practical, it's not doable. You've got different working patterns, working night shifts means working nights, and so it's not feasible. Feasible is a very useful word, and it means it's not possible. So I'm looking at both sides here. I'm saying, yeah, it's great, it's important, but giving some reasons why it isn't always feasible, why it isn't always possible. Hope you found this video useful, and thank you very much for watching.